You're listening to the Real Talk Real Estate Show with your host, Clayton Hepler.
Today's guest is Alex Deacon. His real estate experience extends from being a licensed real estate agent with over 20 years of experience and a broker of record for his own high-power real estate brokerage, Deacon Hoover Real Estate Advisors, to being the owner of Mace Property Management, a local property management company with over 800 properties in the greater Pittsburgh area. But his accomplishments don't stop there. Between selling over 1,000 homes in his career and consistently renovating between 4 to 8 homes a month, today's guest is making a real impact on the Pittsburgh market. He is a self-described educated first and investor second, and he's just getting started. So please help me in welcoming the man who calls himself the Deacon of real estate, Alex Deacon.
When I first started, I was a mechanic. I was changing oil, changing brakes, all that good stuff. And the guy next to me, when I was about 26, he was buying real estate. So, well, that's pretty cool. Never thought about that. Let me give it a shot. So I just winged it. End up buying a 3-unit before I owned my own home. And then we went ahead and bought our first home. And then I went ahead and bought a 6-unit with creative financing. Then I bought a duplex with my brother. I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I think I should get my real estate license. So I got my real estate license. I didn't do so well as an agent the first year, so I had to go back as a full-time mechanic. And then I transitioned back from a full-time mechanic to a full-time agent, part-time mechanic. And then by the time I was about 30, I was into investing full-time pretty heavily, and I was a fairly successful real estate agent. Then in, 2002, how old was I then? I don't know, 34 or so. About 34. We started Mace Property Management, which was my management company. We still have that going today. We manage about 700 units. And the reason I started the management firm was because I had an extensive portfolio at that time, and I saw there was a lack of good service and good management companies available. So I started my own, and we started Deacon Hoover Real Estate Advisors, which is our sales firm. And I started that with my partner, Ian Hoover, and we started that in 2017. So that's where I am. I heavily invest in real estate in Pittsburgh. And when I say heavily invest, I mean, I buy mainly single families, duplexes, things like that. I buy maybe a couple homes a month, and we'll flip them or we'll hold them. I'm not a big developer. I know what I know, and I'm good at I stay in my lane is what I'm trying to say. And I don't veer out of my lane because it's too hard to, there's only a few that are good at that. Most people should really just focus and stay in their lane and get really good at it. So that's what I've done. I'm having fun doing it. So that's my story. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's pretty much it. I've been doing it for about 26 years now.
Great. So just so everyone knows, all of our listeners know, Alex and I actually had a podcast before this, and we had bad signals because of this whole coronavirus. We were recording this in the middle of the coronavirus. But I want to jump on something that I actually heard you talk about in one of your podcasts about mapping out your real estate journey. I think you would be a really great help for a lot of our listeners who are starting out in real estate, and about mapping your own journey, because your journey, you say that you stayed in your own lane, but you have your own brokerage. You have your own property management company.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of renovations. Okay. So there's a lot of things that you have up in the air. What do you think? Let's first jump into what's your specialty that you would tell our listeners about. What makes you so good at it, and how have you mapped your lane, your own lane throughout your real estate investing journey that's made you so successful?
Okay, so you got me there, though. You're right. I haven't stayed in my own lane. I've gone off to here and gone to there. And every time I do that, I'm not as effective. If I could do it all over again, which we all would be able to make the mistakes go away. If I could do it all over again, what I would have done is just focused on buying real estate and my real estate sales, because those two alone, the sales I could have been like a contender, like the movie says, I could have been a contender. I could have been probably one of the top agents in Pittsburgh, but I didn't focus on that. I was in the top 1% nationwide, but I wasn't anywhere close to number one. And if I would have just stayed in my lane on the sales side, I could have made a boatload of money. And then on the real estate investment side, then you can shelter that. You can shelter that income by buying real estate. And those two things alone would have been sufficient to become very successful. But I was young and I tended to veer and jump at the next shiny object. So that was, I'll start my own property management company. I'm better than anybody else. I can do it. I'll start this and I'll do that and I'll develop property and I'll buy raw land. I did a couple different things that were absolutely just incorrect. And if I can tell anybody who's just starting out, is definitely get really good at raising your real estate IQ. That means listening to podcasts like this, reading books, hanging around people that are highly successful, going to, listening to webinars, going to workshops, things like that. Spend a year just building your real estate IQ. I literally just jumped into it. I had nobody mentoring me. I jumped into it and bought a 3-unit. And it's not that difficult to do. It's easy to conceptualize real estate because it's very simple. You buy real estate, you rent it out, the tenants pay your mortgage, you make money, and you rinse and repeat.
It's so easy. It's just, everyone should do it.
It's very simple to conceptualize, and it's very difficult. So in one hand, it's easy to understand. The second hand, it's very difficult because you have a lot of competition. We're not like rocket scientists. There's a few on the planet. We're real estate investors where, I'm sure every 10th person you talk to owns property or knows somebody who owns property. So it's highly competitive. That makes sense. So stay in your lane, start small, become really good at acquisitions, management, the rehab, managing your contractors. There's so much more to it than just buying real estate. That's the fun part, is finding the deal and getting it under contract. It's all the other stuff that's difficult, when it's managing contractors, managing your tenants, collecting rents, doing accounting. There's a lot more to it. So become really good at the absolute boring stuff, which is everything I just discussed. All that's the boring part of it. And the deal is the exciting part.
Yeah, and I'd like to maybe turn this into a little bit of an Alex Deacon workshop because of how knowledgeable you are. You said one thing that really sparked my interest is that, I would have just bought real estate and got my sales up for real estate sales. What could you kind of walk us through what buying real estate means? Because to some people, it's like, well, if there's an opportunity, I'm looking at the MLS in Pittsburgh and I see this opportunity here and there. I've heard you in your podcast cover, hey, just focus on this one area. Are there a couple of core principles that you live with and have helped you through your investing journey that you can impart on our listeners?
Yeah, number one is going to be something nobody wants to hear. It's called hard work. Okay. If you can't work hard and you can't focus and you're not driven, then do not start a business and do not get into real estate. Just stay an employee. There's nothing wrong with staying an employee somewhere and having a 1099 and saving your money, and that's it. So number one is you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I willing to commit? Am I willing to give up and have delayed gratification and know that if I purchase something today for buy and hold, I'm not going to see any rewards for it for 5 or 10 years. And then multiply that times 50, because that's how hard it is. So number one is look yourself in the mirror and understand that if you're not driven and a go-getter, then one, you should not do it. Or two, you should find an investor who's a partner, who maybe they're the boots on the ground, maybe they're driven, maybe you're the guy behind the scenes or the gal behind the scenes doing the accounting, finding the deals. So find yourself a partner that's a good marriage, and that's easier said than done. And then once you get into it, once you answer that question and you say, you know what, I'm committed, I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend a year learning, and I'm going to talk to as many people as I can, so on and so forth. Then you have to map out that success and decide how many units do I want to own? How much time do I want to commit to this? You know, being 168 hours in a week, realistically, on those 168 hours, after I sleep, eat, go to my regular job, play with the kids, go to grandma's birthday party, how much time is left to focus on real estate? And work your way backwards, if that makes any sense. So if you can commit 4 hours a week, which is not enough, but that's all you can commit, then maybe your lofty goals of owning 10 units this year should be reduced to 1 or 2. There's nothing wrong with having smaller goals and then chunking them down one at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If you want to own 100 units, you start with, take your time and make sure that the quality is there, not the quantity. That's more important, because I owned a whole bunch and I got myself into trouble. Then I had to shrink and start over, like half the portfolio left, and build it up again. So, I mean, I cut 10 years off of my real estate investment career because I had to take a step backwards. Like you were telling about your parents who got caught in the 2008, disaster, and it happened. Best of us. Sometimes you got to start over. Sometimes you start from the beginning and you start stronger. But I prefer not to have to take 10 years out of my investment career, and I would like to have somebody also do that. So I try to help people through the mistakes I've made and mistakes I see others make.
What's been the biggest mistake that you've made? I want to stay on the same thread.
Yeah. Just rushing into it, not knowing the facts. There's two theories, right? You have to look before you leap, meaning analyze, make sure you're making the right decision, right? The other concept is you can't just sit on your ass and analyze things. You have to, at some point, do it. So you have to find that happy medium where you're knowledgeable enough to analyze deals and potential business opportunities, but then you also have to have, at some point, that gut that just says, we need to just do it.
Right.
I just did it, and I didn't analyze anything, and that got me into trouble. Now I analyze and I do it, and my mistakes, although they're there, I make 1 out of 10 mistakes versus 5 out of 10 mistakes.
Great. So I think that what's appropriate now is that we're kind of in a climate, and this will be released in about 3 weeks. I imagine we'll still be in shelter in place. We're all going crazy. But you mentioned one of your deals was a creative financing deal, your 6-unit creative financing. This is an environment that is actually ripe for creative financing deals. Could you tell us a little bit about how you structured that deal?
That was... I winged it big time. I think I read one real estate book. I really do. I think I read a real estate book, and it's sprinkled in there creative financing somewhere. So I found this deal. It was on the MLS. I had an agent represent me because I wasn't licensed at the time. And it was a 6 units. I had the seller hold a mortgage of like $80,000, and I put down 8. I think I put down 10%. Okay. So the seller held a mortgage. I put down 10%. That was pretty much it. He was the bank. I was the lender. I was the borrower.
So how did you pitch him this deal? Because if someone hears that, that's a highly leveraged deal, but also if it's on the MLS, I hear that now, and I mean, everything's frozen now, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, if you could find something on the MLS and you have enough time to put creative financing in place, you're a lucky man.
It's a different market now. You could not do that today without looking at 500 deals. Back then, which was like 94, for some reason or not, the information age, the internet wasn't around. It was much easier to put deals together like that. You can't do that today unless you look at, like I said, 500 deals. I might have looked at 20.
Wow. So there you go. Your point about hard work and knowing that when you look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, on our last podcast, I was telling you about it. I had to look at 300 deals before we offered on our 4-unit that we just got under contract in Avalon, because even on the MLS, there's still deals, but like you got to look far and high, and you got to look at distress situations like it's a foreclosure. Right. So tell us a little bit about why you got into, you're on the same path, you're buying real estate, but you got into the property management business. Tell us a little bit about why you got in the property management business. What's your value proposition for your company, and with whom you work at Mace?
Okay. The reason I got into property management was kind of twofold. One, I saw the opportunity to have multiple streams of income. And fortunately for me, so we started in 2002. By 2007, 2008, when we had the mortgage crash and the major financial crisis across the country, that property management kind of kept us afloat because my sales tapered off. So on that side of things, I'm glad I started the management firm. I started it with my wife, so my wife ran the day-to-day. Now, if I was to do it all over again, I probably would not have started a management firm. I would have stayed focused on what I just talked about before, just self-manage my stuff and had my own staff, just because in the management side of things, there's so much liability. Like we were talking the last time we had spoken, we've been sued like 4 or 5 times. And these are $1 million lawsuits from people falling. And none of this is our fault. None of the lawsuits are our fault. But regardless, when you get sued, you have to go to court. Your insurance company has to front the bill, so on and so forth. And it's not fun. I've been doing sales for 24 years, and I've had 1,300 sales or so. I've never been sued on the sales side. So there's a lot to say for starting your own management firm, because it's great because I have multiple streams of income. I can help other landlords manage their properties, so on and so forth. It's kind of fulfilling in that sense. But in the other sense, if you, like a person like yourself, hey, I'm going to start a management company just like Alex did, give that one some thought, because it's a tough one to swallow. If I could say anything to anyone just starting out, focus on acquiring your own portfolio and possibly managing it yourself.
So when was there a point at which you say, because you know how it is in the Bigger Pockets forums, I see you in there all the time, or, new investors are always going to ask, well, Alex, how do I know whenever I should hire a property management company? What makes a good property management company for an investor? How do you answer those questions?
Good question. I just did a 10-minute YouTube video on it, so I'll post that pretty soon, just on that same question. I always explain to people that management is a luxury, it's not a necessity. So if you live close to your properties and you have the time to do it, I would strongly suggest you self-manage at least the first couple, so you can get to learn, do I even like management? Do I have the skill set to manage? Am I cut out for management? Some people aren't cut out for it. They're good investors, but they're just not cut out for dealing with tenants and handling all the back office stuff. But I think it's best that you do it at first on your own. Now, some people, they don't have the opportunity to do that. Maybe they live in California and they're buying property here, or they don't live local. They could live in, where you're from,
Yep.
which is only a few hours away, if that. But you can't remotely manage property. It's super difficult to do so. In those cases, you should talk to 3 property management companies, interview them, and ask the right questions. And the right questions the wrong question is, what do you charge? That's not the first question you should ask.
Yeah, it's hard to, a lot of times, at least in our business at Bevan, we see that has to be an alignment of interest, right? So like when you are talking to a property manager or a prospective property management company, the making sure that there's an alignment of interest in terms of like them managing your properties. Number one, being like investor friendly, like knowing how to invest in real estate, but also like if there's incentive, if you can incentivize the property management company in a way that like, oh, if you hit this performance or this NOI, net operating income for our listeners, then you get this percentage bump or something like that. We found that that's a really unique value proposition that we have, and people love to hear that because this, Alex, as well as anyone, that you can sit as a property management company and you get the bills come in or the work orders come in and you just send someone out there and you're not figuring out like, is this person overcharging me? How do I know if they're not overcharging me? Or are they just charging me for the time? It gets confusing, and that could really kill a single family home or a smaller multifamily property.
Sure can. Yeah, absolutely. You got to watch every penny, and you can't rely on the management company to do that for you. So we do our best because on our side we have checks and balances. We do, but they're not perfect. So I always suggest whoever we're managing for, and if you're not going to self-manage, if you're going to hire a management company, you have to manage them. You can't micromanage them because nobody wants to be micromanaged. But you also have to pay attention, and that's a skill set I don't have. I don't pay attention to my portfolio. So, and I own the management company and I own the properties, and yet I don't pay attention to my own portfolio. And that's I just admit it, and it's something you really should do is pay attention, because I know I'm losing money every month because I'm not paying attention to the details. I'm not holding my property manager accountable. I'm not looking at the expenses. I'm not looking at, I look at a few indicators, which is like rents and vacancies, but there's a lot more to look at than just rents and vacancies.
Yep. So let's jump into your investing strategy a little bit. We talked about your management business. We know that you're an agent. You have a real estate brokerage, which we can jump into a little bit later. But I want to talk to you about how you view investing in Pittsburgh. There are a lot of gurus and real estate investors who say, "Hey, you should just focus on multifamily," or "Hey, you should just focus on single family." How do you approach that type of conversation when maybe a new investor approaches you, or even an experienced investor approaches you?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with focusing on a certain segment, single family, multifamily, so on and so forth. For me, I've been in the Pittsburgh region my entire life, so I focus primarily on geographic areas and single family to multifamily, say 8 to 10 units. I don't focus on the larger scale multifamily just because I don't really have access to it, nor do I have time to focus on that because I'm focused on 1 to 10 units. So I can't say for someone just to focus on single families or multifamilies or in geographic areas. You have to decide that for yourself. What I can tell you is you want to get really good at whatever you decide to focus on. Okay. So if you want to focus on, I always tell people to make like a triangle of where they live. Like if you live here, you work here, and you play over here. Let's say, you're in a bowling league over here. You have a little triangle there. Knowing that we only have 168 hours in a week, and there's only maybe 10 hours left over after you use it all for other things, you should focus on that triangular area to buy, because you're just going to run out of time. You can't focus on areas that are outside of your geographical reach, because by the time you get there, that property is going to be gone, number one. Number two, you can't possibly know that area unless you're focusing on one area that's on an outlier and you want to focus. Like if I wanted to buy where you're from in Ligonier, it would probably be a huge mistake for me. But if I really got good at knowing Ligonier, I probably could buy in Ligonier and become an expert there. but I couldn't buy in Ligonier and in Cleveland and Erie and New York. I mean, you just can't do all that. There's very few people on this planet who can become very good at that. There's enough market in your area where you should focus on a triangular area that you're familiar with and get really, really good within that area.
Could you give us an example of what your triangular area looks like, just so our listeners have a little idea about how many little submarkets are you looking at and how broad it is?
Yeah. So one way I teach this in some of the workshops I do. So you might have that triangular area, which might be huge, right? Okay. So you can eliminate, let's say, half of it because it's out of your price range. Let's say if you're not a multimillionaire and you can buy anything anywhere, you have to eliminate all the areas that you're most likely not going to find a deal in. You know, maybe the average sale price is $300,000 for a single family home, and it's an A area. You know, Swickley School Districts, Upper St. Clair. You're not going to find deals there, so don't look there. Eliminate those. So you can eliminate out of that area a whole subsection that you can't even afford, number one. So there's half of them gone. And then let's say you have 50% left. Out of that 50%, you could probably eliminate another half of that, which would leave you with about 25% of that geographic area. Because maybe they're war zones, maybe it's a high crime area, maybe it's just not an area you want to be involved with because the element of society is just not good there, okay? So you can eliminate a whole lot just by price, desirability of the neighborhood, so on and so forth. And then you can get to a reasonable area to focus on, because if you're not focused like that, you're not going to get the deals because they go too quickly. You have to really know your market, street by street, area by area, and then you can strike when the iron is hot, and you're not going to miss deals as much.
Do you ever rule out deals, Alex, for or opportunities for quantity of property taxes? I'm thinking about a school district like Crafton or like Brentwood or Wilkinsburg. Are those prohibitive for you, or do you feel like that's a competitive advantage if you can get a good deal there because no one else is going to invest there?
Is it because the taxes are high?
Yes.
Yeah. Brentwood is really high. Wilkinsburg is super high. Wilkinsburg could be a good purchase right now because there's some things going on over there that I don't fully understand, that maybe that could be the next hot market. I don't buy over there. I don't study that market. But some really smart people, if you spent the time studying it and figuring out, are they going to, I think they're talking about merging school districts or something with the city of Pittsburgh. I've heard that. I mean, those could be huge if you got some inside track on, oh yeah, they are going to merge. But here's the thing, it's right now, it's all speculative. So you could buy everything in water, right? It could take 20 or 30 years for Wilkinsburg to change. And can you wait that long? You know, and it may never change. So even if you're buying something now in Wilkinsburg, for example, make sure that it cash flows, and it cash flows well enough to hopefully get to the next level where Wilkinsburg could turn around and be the next Lawrenceville or the next.
Yep, absolutely. And those are all questions, personal questions that you got to answer. I just hope that thinking about taxes, thinking about what the demographics are in the school district and everything like that, it kind of informs you to, within everyone's triangle, there's probably like a group of like B, C areas that basically fit within those kind of middle ground that everyone can invest in, and they're going to have good returns, but they're not going to be too egregious in the property taxes or anything like that. Great. So what do you think is challenging about investing in the Pittsburgh market in general?
I think the challenge would be, well, for me, it's to stop chasing every shiny object, and it's really to focus. And because I get calls all the time, emails, hey, did you see this deal? How about this one? I'm like, I can't chase them all. So you have to know, I think my best investment sometimes is the ones I don't go after. the ones I say no to. And because you drive yourself insane chasing deals, it becomes an addiction. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I chase after every deal, but you have to know when to say no. And I don't know when to tell somebody when you're going to like get that, when that's going to sink in. It just takes a lot of time, but you have to know with maturity and the knowledge of the market when to say no, because you just can't chase every deal. So that's my challenge is stop chasing every rainbow and just stay focused.
Where have you in your career, we've talked a lot about, you have a brokerage, you have a property management company, your bio says that you've managed 4 to 8 renovations a month. I mean, you're a very successful real estate investor, but in someone's time period of investing, and you've been investing for quite a while now, there are periods that one has the greatest amount of success or the greatest amount of acceleration and learning. I'd like to kind of pull the hatch back and see if you could, think about a period in your time in investing. Maybe it's now that you've had the greatest amount of progress, whether it's learning or acquisition growth or financial growth. And why do you think in that period you experienced that amount of growth?
Really good question. I would say for me, now it's different for everybody, right? For me, since I was the kind of personality where I just wanted to jump in and just get it done and see where stuff lays out after we're all done, just do it, which is good and it's bad. We talked about that. Now for me is the best time. And I think it's because I'm more mature and I know when to say no to deals, and I can just temper my desire and my drive with maturity. And I don't know how else to put that. I temper my desire and my drive with my maturity, which my maturity steps in and says, Alex, you screwed up that about 10 times in the past. Don't do that anymore. Then I just stop thinking about it and I think I said stay focused a lot. So that must mean that's important. Stay focused, stay in your lane, become really good at what you do. You don't have to be the next super multi-billionaire real estate investor to become successful. Just become really good and become the best you that you can be, and you're successful. That's owning 10 units or 10,000 units.
I love that. So you're saying now is the best time because you have the maturity level to know that my younger self was, this guy that was full of piss and vinegar. And my older self is this guy who's like a little more, considered and deliberate. And now that I have that mesh, I still have that aggression, but I know when to say no. And you're right that, I like how you said the best investments that I ever make are the ones that I don't buy. I love that.
I'm sure your dad could piggyback off of that too.
Sure.
Any real estate investor who's done any volume will tell you that,
Great. So let's jump into the Real Talk Real Estate fire round. What's your real estate superpower that makes you a deadly investor?
Oh gosh. Well, I wouldn't call myself deadly, but what makes me good at what I do? I'm really honest with people and I'm fair. I'm always fair to my partners. And for the most part, man, my partners and I, even if it doesn't work out, we're always friends. But for the most part, I always make money for my partners. So that's important. Unless you're an island and you want to do this all by yourself, you just make sure you do the right thing. You help your partners and you help your clients. And you're doing the right thing and you're helping them make money. You're helping them make the right decision. So thing is critical.
What's your number one recommended real estate book or business mindset book?
How to Win Friends and Influence People is a good one. That's Dale Carnegie, I believe. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's a good one. That's Robert Kiyosaki. Those are two really good and really easy books to read.
Yeah.
So I recommend those two.
What is a quote that you live by?
I can think of one right now, not necessarily live by, but it's the only one I can think of at the top of my head. But it was Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He said, because he's obviously real famous and so on and so forth. And he said, I think his mother or his uncle said this to him. I think it was his mother. She said, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So just be nice.
I love it. I love it.
You don't have to be a cutthroat, what they call businessman. You know, when people say, "Oh, I'm a businessman," it's all about business, or it's not personal, it's business. And people look at that the wrong way. Business doesn't have to be like that. Business can be being nice, but hard work and drive will far outwork natural ability or ripping people to where you need to get to by working hard and being nice.
What do you currently use your real estate wealth for, or hope to one day use your real estate wealth for?
That's another good question. I don't know. I don't buy extravagant things. I like cars. I have a nice small little car collection. I don't have a big house, or I don't do extravagant things. I think I'm going to amass millions of dollars at some point in my career, and I don't know what I'm going to do with the money, because I don't know. What am I going to do with it? I'll give some to my kids. I'll give some to charity. I'll buy more cars. It's not about the money. If it is for you, if it's about the money, it's that probably not going to, that focus is not going to get you through the next level and through the ceiling to the next level, through that ceiling. That's not going to motivate you enough. And I couldn't even tell you what my drive is, other than I just want to wake up every day and be a better me and try to be. It's like an addiction as far as the deals are concerned. It's nice putting deals together. It's cool, but it's not about the money. Mm-hmm. It never was. Money's a byproduct of it. Money's cool. Gives you comfort and security, but it's not going to make you happy.
So before I ask my last question, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
That's another good question. It's my email is alex@alexdeacon.com, and Alex is spelled ALEX. Deacon is spelled DEACON. Alex@alexdeacon.com.
What drives you? You kind of already answered this question, but what drives you to keep investing in real estate and growing as a person?
I don't know what I would do if I didn't in work. So work for me is real estate. So it's real estate investing. I enjoy finding the deals. That drives me, getting that next deal under contract. I never really thought about what is the determining single focus drive that has pushed me through where I am and where I need to be and where I'm going. But that's probably and come up with that versus I'm a just do it guy. So
just do it.
Yeah, I just do it.
Let's go. Hey, Alex, thank you
Something
so much.
Something good's going to happen. I appreciate it. Great questions. This is a lot of fun for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being on the Real Talk Real Estate Investing Podcast. Until next time.